Beverly Hammett, who is leading the U.S., the Eastern region of the United States. Beverly, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully this connection stays clear. You can see outside. Hello? Hello?
Yes, we do have you.
Yep, we got you.
Great, thank you.
You.
Okay, hope everybody's having a good day. My name is Beverly Hammett, based out here in Georgia, in the United States. I've been involved with GBA for the past 7-8 months, first as a student, and then taking responsibilities for various activities, including helping re-engage individuals on the East Coast with revamping their chapters. At this point in time, we have had a couple of new chapter leaders who have re-engaged the chapters in different states, including Georgia, Ohio, and at this point in time, we've only had one in-place or in-person meeting, and that was in Georgia about 2 months ago. And since then, there's been bi-weekly, sometimes weekly meetings via Zoom held by the chapter leader, Corey and Renika for the Georgia chapter. And that is the update as relates to what's going on the East Coast. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah, no, we appreciate you filling us in. At this time, we can transition to, I don't see Alex on yet. Jovan, do you want to cover the West Coast, and then we'll take questions?
I'm going just to say that Beverly has helped us to rethink and rebuild a number, or start rebuilding a number of processes that they were lacking mostly, or were just intuitively in place, but not properly. And I think that generally we're now heading towards a better system, how to get new leaders on board and how to get those leaders properly inducted towards the GBA culture. So thank you very much, Beverly, for that.
You're welcome. And I just saw a message from Alex. He said he's in the waiting room, waiting to come in.
So can we allow?
I'm not seeing him in the waiting room.
I'll send him a text message. I've sent him a text message telling him he should log in again.
All right, great.
Yeah, no, is he logging? Does he have the Zoom? Here, I'll make sure he has a Zoom link. There we go. All right, so Jordan, you should be able to see him now at any moment. Pop into the waiting room. Listen. While we're waiting for him to come in, we do have Ross and Tara Sue, who essentially are out of North Carolina. Do we want to share some of the stuff that because they're working on their groups are working on a whole bunch of stuff. Rob, how does that sound?
I think that'll work. We do have time slots for the Watley debate and governance on Saturday, and they can also speak up in the GBA technology. But on some of the other stuff, yes, they could give a brief update.
Sure. I mean, in terms of what's going on with the North Carolina chapter.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Ross and Tara Sue, if you got a moment, you want to share with us a little bit about what's going on from the North Carolina chapter perspective. I know you just did an event with John, and then just bring people up to speed with what you guys are doing in that part of the country.
Yes. Ross Myers, NC chapter lead. We landed back here in North Carolina a couple months ago with part of the roadmap being assisting the GBA with getting the NC chapter moving again. We have been extremely busy. We recently, within the last couple of weeks, did a meetup. It wasn't in person. It was via Zoom, working together with the land titling group, John D. Markunis's group. He pulled together an excellent panel discussion around land titling. We've also been really busy on developing relationships within the existing North Carolina blockchain decentralized ecosystem. As Jovan likes to say, GBA is not a policy organization. So what we've been doing is reaching out to the state and local based blockchain initiatives and begin the process of developing a relationship with them. We're busy recruiting.
They gifted the chapter. The existing meetup in the central part of the state has 200 plus members, and they literally gifted them to the North Carolina chapter of the GBA. So moving forward, we have a nice base from which to operate. We did spend some time reaching out to members of early days who worked on developing the chapter, or at least initiatives in the area. So just kind of re-networking with old relationships and networking with new relationships. I'm Tara Sue Myers, by the way, and I lead the Gaming Works Group. And we also have our corporation, Gaming Benefits Corporation, has offices 808 Main Street in High Point, right next to the North Carolina GBA's office, which has been gifted to us by Robert J. Brown and Associates. Mr. Bob Brown will be a keynote speaker tomorrow.
And one of the things that I'd like to share that we can do as a GBA organization is we can get public sector donations for venues, right? So before we were looking for restaurants and other venues that cost money, but I'm finding a great reception in going to government entities and them being willing to let us use conference rooms and auditoriums and things like that for GBA events, since we are government focused. The only thing is that you can't, typically most governments won't let you charge for those venues, but what you can do is essentially you get sponsors, and there's other ways that you can generate revenue. But when we do an event in a public building, it gives GBA just great credibility. So just want to throw that out there for other leaders to consider.
Excellent point. And we've reached out to our public library, and they're tied in with the museum and all kinds of other entities within the community. So schools. We're really looking for the next meetup we do in July. We should be announcing the date and the topic within the next week or so. In July will be a hybrid event, personal and online, and we're really excited to get out there and start mixing with folks again.
Yeah, it'll be. Sylvia, could you share for me? You before the pandemic, you were extremely successful in building out the Miami chapter. Could you share with us a little bit about how you did that and what some of the techniques you work? Because you did a great job. And you're on mute, unless he's getting a cup of coffee or something. All right.
Hi, this is Beverly. Sorry to interject. Alex just sent the text message saying he's not able to get in, and he's asking if there's a phone number where he can dial it in.
I will. There is. Hang on one second. Participants, invite, copy invitation. So I'm going to drop that into the chat. There we go. Can you send that to him? Oh, well. Yeah, Beverly, can you send that to him? Alex.
Yes, done.
All right, so he should be able to call in on that number. Sylvia, are you still with us? Right. So let me share with you how, a little bit about how I built the DC chapter. Right. The key was consistency, and I'm so glad that Ross just mentioned library. So the first event we did, we marketed like crazy for about 2 months, right? And I knew this was going to be big time in government, right? And marketed. We've got this big, beautiful building, a place called the Tower Club. I paid a lot of money for the room. And 20 minutes after the event started, our second guest arrived, right? One of those guests was Mark Wasser. And we had 100 chairs in the room. So just imagine 100 chairs and 2 people in it. So I said, Jiminy Crickets, I can't afford to do this. So after that, we started meeting in libraries, right? I mean, I could get a library room for free. And the people who showed up were crazy people, right? They were anarchists, right? They were people that like had been behind their computer screen for much too long. They had no vitamin D. Their eyes were burned out. And then I'll never forget the CIO of a big government contractor showed up in one of these meetings there were 4 other people there that were just crazy. But we just kept meeting every month. We would just kept meeting I forgot what it was, like the 3rd Tuesday of every month or whatever. And slowly they started coming, right? And then we started getting a couple other government contractors and then some low level government officials. And that was kind of in the tail end of 2017. 2018 was our first full year in operation. And by 2019, 2020, we were doing events in the United States Capitol, right? But the one thing that the 1 or 2 things that I would say is it's got to be consistent, right? You've got to have the chapter meetings the same date and time, or the same, like on a regular basis, so people can know that it's there. We use all of our tools to support it. And then every month we would have a different topic that we'd pull from the working groups. And these have to be things where we're providing value. We're not trying to sell stuff, right? It's for the folks that are presenting, it's referred to as value selling, which means you provide so much value that people want to engage with you in a conversation. But if it appears as if you are trying to sell them something, then you lose people right away. George, I know that you have had a phenomenal success at really creating a brand and a community up there in Canada. You want to share some thoughts about how you've been able to do that? I think George is with Silvio. All right. Well, needless to say, we've got Alex coming in right now, so we'll get to him in a second. And Beverly, you guys have just started up the Atlanta chapter. That's gone fairly well, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. We don't necessarily have people coming who are consistent. So we'll have, let's say, 5 people come, and in the following week, 2 people that those 5 that have recommended join. So yeah, it's been going well.
Yeah, well, we were we started with 2, and then after a little while, we were up to 40, and then people started showing up from other cities, and they said, "I really like what you're doing here. Can we share this? Will you share your slides with us?" And so I think the first one might have been New York. I think Atlanta was the second one. Denver, Atlanta, Denver, New York, Texas. They were some of the early ones. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for saving me a spot.
It's important. Alex, there's some background. Are you also on the Easy Expo thing, or is that just background noise where you are?
And once again, thank you so much for saving me a spot.
No problem. All right, you want to share with us a little bit about what's going on there on the western side of the United States?
I do. I would love to. And if I could have just a minute or about 30 seconds for me to just pull up some notes that I prepared. And it's a lot of really, really exciting stuff. I'm going to talk about 5 different items, and I'm ready to go in about a minute. Thank you so much for your patience. And Zoom is not liking me today, so I'm gonna have to call her and have a talk with her. But one second, if you could give me just 1 minute.
While you're pulling up your notes, I'll share just a little bit about our background. So Alex called me before our FMAGL event at George Mason University in September of 2019, and and he said he wanted to come out, and he it was kind of a lean time. He put a couple nickels together and he came out. And I'll never forget, after the event, we were sitting on my back porch, and he was, he'd had a couple of drinks, and he had his GBA thing would never work. And the next thing you know,
I didn't say that. I'm gonna cut you off. I didn't say that. That is not true.
Well, one of us
something along those lines. But go ahead, Gerard.
Well, we'll let the one who was sober tell the story. So so anyway, he's come a long way with us, and he's been doing a lot of things, really building engagement out there on the West Coast. So with that, Alex, by all means, please feel free to share.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you. So I'm going to open with one of the items that I think is really, really important to all of us. California has always been, I guess, a canary in a coal mine, or something that really, or the state has really, or sets the tone for the rest of the country. And so whatever happens in California, typically in New York City or New York as well, typically starts to be adopted throughout the states. And so I had the opportunity to participate or to work with some of the people on the California State Blockchain Working Group. And so it was a bill that was passed in 19. There was 12 months on the clock, and June 31st, this group of private and public sector participants, there was 22 people, or 24, I believe, with 12 being represented by the private sector with just a very diverse set of opinions, and then 12 different people from the public sector, including the Assembly Majority Leader as well as the House Majority Leader, who are both the sponsors of this bill. And so California has kept an eye on blockchain for quite some time, and government is starting to realize, and speaking with Gerard on many different occasions, and Gerard mentioned on many different, or on a few occasions, that if there's a value move, or if there's ever a value move, the government wants to know about it. And I'm sure we can imagine why, because if it moves, it gets taxed. And so to that point, the bill requested a recommendations report, which started the working groups, which started to really define blockchain, the definition, and many of the different use cases that are appropriate in California state, or that would be appropriate for California state. And so I had the same opinion. I showed up, the first time I showed up, I was disappointed. I was just thinking, wow, to what state am I going to move? Because this is going to be a disaster, this recommendations report. But within a year, the report that was delivered to the legislators and to their staffers was just amazing. It was really it was a document or a report that everybody should take a little bit of time to read and to really appreciate how what all transpired. We actually defined blockchain, which is really hard to do for really anybody. And so there's a specific definition which is used as a guide or as a definition when discussing or when writing policy in the state of California. And so I showed up, and I was disappointed, just like what happened with the GBA. When I showed up at the second, I believe, meeting, Gerard was kind enough to invite me to his house. I took full advantage of the beers that were there, and I was sitting around the campfire, and I thought, wow, we have a lot of work to do. in my background in standing up different companies or different products. Never a business league like the GBA, or never doing it with such an amazing group of people. But I knew, or I believe we all knew, that there's going to be a lot of work ahead of us. And so I showed up to DC. I was so excited. I thought, wow, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm going to set up a chapter in Sacramento, and we're going to kick ass. But when I arrived, just like with the recommendations report, it was a heavy lift. This is the topic of blockchain is almost something that needs to be almost a polymath. And what I mean by that is there's so many different components to blockchain that in order to understand or even design or imagine blockchain products that are relevant, one has to know a lot of different topics. And I'm not going to get into the topics. I know we can all imagine all of the different working groups and all the different, let's say, even philosophies to where blockchain is defined many different ways by many different people. One of the things that's really, really exciting with the GBA is the fact that we have taxonomy working groups. There's a lot of really smart people. When I showed up to DC, I realized one thing, that I'm not very smart. There's so many really, really smart people in Washington DC that I was really humbled with the first trip that I took out to DC. But the working groups are really important because the taxonomy, or the definition, or the standards, which is similar to what happened in California, June 31st, is really, really important. One of the reasons that I joined the GBA is I really wanted to understand how regulators, how policymakers are going to, they're going to dictate where this industry goes. And so at the end of the day, policy is going to have a major impact on all of us, on the world, let's say, if we want to be grand, but it's going to have a big impact on our ability, or the private sector, to build product, to build or to imagine network design or blockchain enabled business models. And if one is not ahead of this, if one is not ahead of the policy, or if one is not part of the conversation, then in my opinion, it's likely not a good thing when designing or when building any type of blockchain solution. So that's why I recommend everybody, all the people on this call, to renew your membership, first of all. And then anybody who's going to be, who will attend this event, it's, again, very important aspect, or in my opinion, it's a very important aspect to this whole thing named this whole thing called blockchain. So with that, I'm going to share with really quick, because I've been on the phone, I believe, for 10 minutes. I'm going to share very quickly in terms of some of the chapter leaders, what products, who they are, and how passionate they are in developing blockchain solutions. We have a gentleman named Wesley. I believe Wesley Williams. I just texted him this morning. He is in Chula Vista, and he is building some of the most cutting-edge title or real estate solutions in the realm of blockchain, or in the realm of in the real estate, and obviously in the mortgage lending industry. How cool! He's made so much progress. He has companies, escrow companies, some title companies they're ready to go. I believe the Ubiquity, which is a member with the GBA. If they're not a member, then I'll be calling them right after this call. Also, the next company, and so if anybody really wants to learn how they can duplicate or learn from what Wes has had to really develop over quite some time, then I recommend you call him and retain him, because he's an attorney. But also, make sure that it's mutually beneficial for you to call any one of these companies here in California or the West Coast as everybody's really busy. So moving forward, there's about 2 different companies or 2 different use cases. The next one is going to be Mark Manning. What a cool guy. I've never met somebody who's more giving, who's more who's more willing to share in what his company is doing and all the wonderful clients that he has today, and who he is transacting with. And so Mark Manning had this idea that blockchain is going to change the world, especially in the logistics and cross-border and provenance industry. And so he has a company called iTrace. Some really, really big enterprise clients are with him, including Honeywell, including Fossil Enterprise, and a few others that he's recently announced. And so what's a cool use case for, and I'm going to wrap it up here as soon as possible. What's a cool use case for blockchain-enabled logistics solution, and what Honeywell has hired iTrace to provide a solution is, for example, airplane parts can be refurbished or remanded or remanufactured up to 5 times. So next flight you take, those parts are going to be brand new, so don't worry about it. But when these parts are remanufactured, then there is a secondary market for them. And so Honeywell really needs to understand where their parts go, and the parts that are being sold or the parts that are being remanufactured are, in fact, safe to reuse on airplanes or the parts that Honeywell needs, or the parts that they resell globally. And so with Fossil, there's a lot of problems with fraud. And so Fossil watches Fossil Enterprise. They track and trace the reverse logistics into where warranty and repairs has to be tracked in order to make sure that there's no funny business. And so lastly, I'm going to talk to,
real quick, this is a great sort of teaching point. So I just looked at Mark Manning's profile on the GBA site, and he's got phenomenal capabilities, right? And however, there's no way for anybody to find him on the GBA site because he hasn't filled out his profile, and he's not part of the supply chain or the international trade working group. So he's missing out on all the opportunities that's happening in those groups, right? Because whenever we get an opportunity, and we get opportunities a bunch, we drop them into the working groups, and he has no way of connecting with any of those opportunities.
I believe he's more in the he's a professional in terms of what I mentioned earlier. He's very open with his knowledge. He's very open to sharing in terms of what works and what helps his company win these really big, let's say, contracts. Although I will definitely make this a priority, and it'll be number 2 on my list to call after this event. Likely Tuesday morning.
Yeah, so I don't just say that specifically for Mark, but for all of the leaders that are on the call, check to see if the folks that are kind of in your orbits, if they filled out their profiles, and most importantly, is their email addresses correct in the system. Sometimes people use like an email address that they never check, but when opportunities essentially become available, we're looking for speakers, anything like that. If they're not using an accurate email address in there, then they're not going to.
The onboarding process. The onboarding process is something Gerard, Jovan, and I are working on. It's going to, the desire is to make it one click to buy, but we're still working to figure out how to do that and get everybody involved in terms of all the chapter leaders and everybody who's on this call to participate in the business development aspect of GBA. Obviously. Funds can really make this global. And just one more thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the business development. This is more in terms of once somebody's a member. So he paid for membership. That's we're grateful. But if he doesn't, and again, this is not specifically you or Mark. I'm just using this as an example. If we don't encourage our folks to connect And I realize that the website is glitchy sometimes and it hangs up, and hopefully we'll get that soon. We'll get that resolved soon. But we definitely need to connect the working group leaders, the working groups to the members, because that's how they get those connections and all that stuff. Anyway, you got one last.
I agree. I'm sorry. Yeah, one last comment. I agree with 100% with you. Just recently, if you recall, we spoke with Chris with Sustaining Capital. He's in San Diego, California. He's an active venture capitalist, or he's very passionate about identity, and he's very passionate in his views, in the fact that a lot of these the 170 different companies that he spoke to in the identity space do not have their eggs in a row. So that's Sustaining Capital. He's a corporate member, and he will likely be in the working group, identity working group. And so that's the last company I'm going to share with. I want to stress that the opportunities at the federal, international, state, and local level are really accessible in terms of the access that GBA offers when opening conversations. Just like myself, just like a lot of GBAers, and I'm not going to go through this project. We've recently had the opportunity to start to work on a State Department requested proposal in where we use emerging technologies to solve for some of these really important, let's say, issues globally. So please reach out to me, reach out to Gerard, and let's do it. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Yeah, let's get to John Carpenter. So during the last section, we talked about the East and the West. John Carpenter is smack dab in the middle of the country in Colorado. And I was just wondering if he could share with us a little bit about what's happened in Colorado, Wyoming. That area has always been a hotbed for innovation in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space.
Yeah, I'll be glad to, Gerard. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here for a second. I'll share this desktop here. Everyone see my screen here?
Yep.
So we can kick it off with talking a little bit about what's going on in Wyoming. You know, they're very active in their blockchain task force. And so here's an agenda from the last session of the blockchain task force. If anyone wants more information about this, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you engaged in this. But some of the things that they're looking at are very innovative. So anytime you see over here in this final right column, it says LSO, that is the Legislative Service Office. And so they are the ones that were responsible for drafting most of the legislation that was adopted by Wyoming for, being blockchain friendly. So some of the things that they're working on very recently are an insurance sandbox utilizing blockchain. And then also looking at, they're doing a survey to see what the interest is in adopting blockchain throughout the state. There is a non-fungible tokens memorandum, and I can go through and show you a little bit about that information if you'd like. And then also I wanted to share with you kind of these select committee member letters, because this is kind of a roadmap for where they're looking at things next. And I'll show you one that David shared with the group as well. They're also looking at decentralized autonomous organizations within Wyoming. And so, we all know the DAO from back in the day with Ethereum. And so they're looking at that and passing legislation that's friendly toward that in Wyoming. And then they're also looking at digital identity, and they're referencing what the state of Illinois is doing around digital identity through their House Bill 2880. Well, I'm just going to pop over here quickly to this letter, and this came from David Pope, going to basically Chairman Rothfuss, who's really the Democratic side of the committee on blockchain, and then Chairman Jared Olson. and they've both been on the blockchain task force for many years now. And they're talking here about real estate tokenization. And so I think this is really a great point by David Pope, that he wants to see the state of Wyoming work toward direct tokenization of real estate. So I'm just going to highlight that here for everyone, because I think that that's, something that Mark talked about, and something that, is near and dear to my heart is, real estate and being able to do it more efficiently as far as title transfer and tracking, including, immutability and transparency. So really, I think Wyoming is continuing to lead the tip of the spear. You probably are all familiar with Avanti Bank, which Caitlin Long is running, and really, trying to support cryptocurrency deposits with the state of Wyoming. And, we've had, the commissioner, Albert Faulkner, who's the banking commissioner, really back and support that. And so, Wyoming now is becoming the most banking friendly state as far as blockchain is concerned. With respect to Colorado, there's always innovation going on, and the governor, Jared Polis, is also pushing hard on blockchain, not to the same level that Wyoming is doing, but they're doing things more around digital driver's license as a digital identity that you can carry on your phone, and really trying to look at opportunities within the state to really push out additional innovations like we're seeing in Wyoming here. A couple other things I'll bring to bear here is last week I was at the Hyperledger Global Forum. I don't know if anyone on this call got a chance to attend that, but there was some good announcements by IBM about contributing open source code. And this is relevant to this group because, there's some intersection here with Hyperledger Besu. And so IBM contributed now their IBM Blockchain Platform Console. That was a big announcement at the forum. And then they're also doing their support for the Fabric Token SDK. So there's some great new open source code out there. And if anyone wants any more information about that, look me up and I can point you in the right direction. But I think that that's just part of the whole, giving back to the open source community, and IBM's trying to push more adoption for Hyperledger Fabric. The final thing I'm just going to cover is I'm also working with Bobby Muscara, who Gerard knows and who won an award at one of the GBA conferences. And we're doing a blockchain summer employment conference. And so if anyone from the GBA would like to get involved with that, that would be great. Our first event's going to kick off on July 8th, and we're going to have 3 separate events that we're running. And it's really about, getting people up to speed and offering some, understanding that training will get you a good job in the blockchain space. And so we're going ahead and doing 3 events, first one kicking off in July. So that's pretty much my update. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Hey, John, two comments on that. With regard to your blockchain employee, I'd love to collaborate with you with our training program, right? So
Yep.
let's set a separate call up, and maybe somehow that we can connect GBA training partners, because they train in a lot of different areas, right? I mean, development training, all kinds of stuff. And then the second thing is I'm going to share my screen for just a moment.
Sure. Well, I'm glad to coordinate with you on that, Gerard, and I'd love to have GBA promote and be a part of this. It's just basically really to educate the public on the opportunities in the space and training that they can take on.
Yeah, no, I'm totally 100%. Can you stop sharing? Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen. So, and I'm glad Don Lovett is on with us, because the next topic is we've got the schedule so far, and again, this is the draft schedule for Monday, September 27th, state and local, right? But we've got Russell, our good friend Russell from Colorado, who I think would be great. But we don't have a whole lot of other representation from Wyoming, and I think that getting some representation from Wyoming would be highly important for a state and local event. So if you've got any thoughts about particular people over there that would like to participate, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad to ping any people that are on the blockchain task force, Gerard, that I think would be highly relevant and could talk exactly to that legislation that I pointed out to you there.
Yeah,
And so if you want me to do an outreach, I can do that next week.
that would be awesome.